Good evening, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome, boys and girls, kids of all ages, teens, tots, and everyone in between. Welcome to RaceFace GT3 Sprint Series. My name is Stephen Koenig, and joining me in the box once again, and that is the one, the only, Janneman Price. Janneman, how are you doing?
Good evening, Stephen. Doing well, and yourself?
All good. Looking very excited, jumping across the waters. We've left the world of the tea and the queen, well, now king, to jump over to the land of the wild and free. We're heading out to Watkins Glen for round number 3, and it's going to be a very, very interesting race. We've so far seen some great dynamics between different drivers, guys trying to one-up on one another. What do you think is going to happen now that we've head to Watkins Glen, the bowl?
Well, you mentioned it quite quickly. Time to go bowling tonight over to America. Stephen, the fight out in front is fairly close. I mean, will Ryan Otten step up to the plate again tonight? Followed very closely by the likes of Daniel Rowe, Christopher Adloff, Bego, Grobler. I mean, I know we're only 2 races in, but this is starting to become a little bit of a fight out in front.
Well, that's it. And let's actually take a look at the track for anyone that doesn't know Watkins Glen. So we'll get a bit of a track preview brought to you by one of our drivers, hand-picked by Christian Deploy. Thank you, Christian. And we're going to be jumping on with Philip Minnaar as he makes his way through. So, Janneman, take us through as the Rigoli Racing Philip Minnaar drives around Watkins Glen.
Absolutely. Turn 1 is kind of a tricky turn. If you brake too late, you can run wide, go over the track limits. Now we flat out through this section. I don't want to call this a back straight, but it is kind of a longish straight and where a lot of overtaking can take place. You need to hit your brake markers late as possible, just on the 300. I think that's 300 yards, and just go into this inner boot. And then right out of it into this long sweeping right-hander. Stephen, very easy to run wide here. Try and get on that power very early, and now back on the brakes for this left-hander. I see he's keeping it in 3rd gear. This is a crucial corner to get on the power early. You can lose a lot of time here, as I've obviously done. Now we're into the main part of the boot. This is a long right-hand. It feels like forever. Get back on the power. Use that little section of runoff on the left-hand side. And now, Stephen, we come up to a tricky part of the circus. This is also a place where you can gain and lose a lot of the time. Late on the brakes. Get the car swung in. Do not run wide here. You can't use a lot of the exit curb. Now this corner is tricking. It's good. Somewhat of a negative camber. The track falls away from you. Very easy to lose the rear end of the car here, and hopefully we don't see a lot of spin outs there tonight. Now almost flat out through the section. Slight lifts on the throttle, and now you need to get the front of the car in. Brake late. Get it swung in. Don't run too wide, otherwise you're going to meet the wall. And that's a lap of Watkins Glen.
Very difficult circuit, and we've actually got qualifying on at the moment. Less than 10 minutes to go, so let's go through the list. Ryan Otten's currently in 1st place, looking to try and get an early jump on the entirety of the grid. Mac van der Merwe in 2nd place in the Audi. Tian Elof in 3rd place, going and sporting the Rigoli Racing Winter 23 Aston Martin. We haven't had delivery for the Rigoli Racing. Nice to see it, and not all black, but looking pretty stunning as it makes its way around the circuit. So a big thank you to the Rigoli Racing team for helping with delivery. Sujin Pillay down in 4th place. He's cruising around with the Hybrid Academy Ferrari at the moment. Daniel Demetrios Petro once again going and having a bit of fun. He's out in 5th place, looking to dominate the Honda, doing very, very well on the circuit. Followed by Justin Lotus. Nice to see him further up through the field. Jan Kleinans in 7th. 8th place, Mahayath Musa cruising his way through for Project Vapor. And then we got Ronaldo Boersma going and leading out in 9th place. 10th place, Brandon Kruger, Loic Rendabel, Daniel De Villiers, Tenny Nkube down in 13th place, Gideon Rayner in 14th, Bernard Rayner in 15th. 16th, Hunty Myberg, William Wild Wentworth down in 18th. He's actually dropped down. Essie Esterhaus in 19th, Eric Kirstein in 20th. 21st, Jean Leroux, Nicholas Manuel, and Daniel Rowe on 23rd. 24th, Darren Miller, Grant Sebastian, Bego Grobler, and Dean Kabasa rounding out our 27-car field despite load shedding. But Tian Elof in the Aston Martin up into first place, dethroning the likes of Ryan Ottens, who just doesn't seem to have the pace right now, but is going to be really stepping it up considering leading the championship.
I mean, absolutely. And as we say that Daniel de Matos Petro jumps into first place. So things at the front really starting to hot up, Stephen. And we're seeing a couple of different names, you know, in the likes of Elof and de Matos Petro. I'll never get that right. You know, out in front at the moment. And it's nice to see the guys mixing it up. New names out in front. You know, we're used to seeing the Ryan Ottens, the Bego Groblers, the Daniel Rose out in front, but now we've got a couple of new names on there.
It's absolutely incredible, and it's good to see the guys going and really pushing themselves that extra little bit to go and duke it out for the championship. And it really shows that it's not over. We got 8 rounds of the championship, and everyone is game to claw their way through to the top, which is absolutely fantastic. And I know the teams have been putting in a huge amount of work to just try and get one up on one another. And I know the Hybrid Academy team been putting in a lot of work into their drivers, trying to really get the guys to step up and get going, because realizing there's a little bit more competition that's come to fight with them. It's absolutely incredible. But I just want to also check out, you know, we've had a few things, a couple of shout outs. I want to say a big shout out to Christian Ploy once again for helping us with our overlays and also making things look pretty. So big shout out to him. And also a congratulations to a South African driver, well, sim racer, that has been hired for an international team, namely an esports team called G2 that has now gotten into the world of sim racing. They're more commonly known for Dota, and as you see, Bego getting it all types of wrong through the turn 1. But commonly known for Dota, Call of Duty, CSGO. We've got a South African driver going and representing overseas in the G2 team. So well done, Cody Sherritt, for going and putting on a great show and getting that far.
Absolutely. And Stephen, just want to mention, that just shows you what the level of racing here at RaceFace is. You mentioned Bego getting out of shape. I see through the boots there, the bus stop, he got out of shape again. So he's not hanging back. He wants to move up this field. He's certainly not happy with the 5th position that he's got at this stage.
Well, I've got a very good question to ask everyone. So mid-engines at the moment seem to be a little bit happier with a bit more rotation underneath them coming into play. But your front engines, you can't take away from the Aston Martin, the BMW. Yeah, they've really been strong so far all season, and it's coming down to a difficult circuit like this of what's going to be better. Is it going to be the mid-engine that's able to be a little bit more comfortable through tighter cornering, or is the longer corners going to benefit our front engines where it's the faster sweeps? This is all factors that the drivers have to consider, and car choices now coming more and more into play. If you think back to the likes of when we were racing over in the UK, from Brands Hatch going and favoring one over the other, that was, you could see it, to the more of like round 1 where the mid-engines were more powerful, if I can put it that way. They were easier to drive for a longer time. Remember, they don't have a pit stop this evening, and, well, what's going to be easier on the tires? Change of camber, change of undulations, all going to start coming into effect. And what are these cars going to do? Well, only time will be able to tell.
Yeah, we'll have to wait and see on that one. But from my side, you're kind of preaching to a front engine driver. I tend to be slow in the mid-engine cars, always have been. I've actually, in terms of GT3 racing, kind of given up on the mid-engine cars, so I only drive the front-engine cars. Personally, I think there's a couple of corners that's going to get interesting for the mid-engine car, especially third last corner, that tight left-hander as the track falls away from you. Steve, don't know, that those rear ends might get a bit lively out of there, where the front engine cars might be a bit more stable through that section, but suffer from more understeer, obviously. So, I don't know, it's a difficult one. I think we'll have to wait and see on that one.
It's going to be an interesting one, and you know, keeping up how can I say, keeping up the old and keeping up with, well, tradition. Got to say, Robert Wentworth, glad to have you back. And first in the comments, like always. So we've been wondering, fell off the face of the planet. Yanneman sent out a search party. We're yet to hear from the search party. And, well, welcome back to first in the comments. And Robert Wentworth going and supporting his brother, William Wentworth, who's in the Team Tryhard Pink Panther at the moment. The BMW cruising around. So good to see the brothers all supporting each other, becoming more of a family affair, and, well, ultra competitive if they need to be.
Yeah, absolutely. And, all the best for the family tonight. Let's see what the Wentworths get up to tonight.
Our previous last year champion, Mac van der Merwe, down in 8th place at the moment, battling with Audi to get it going. But with only 2 minutes left of qualifying, Daniel Demetrios Petros, man to beat. 1:43.1 as the quickest time. And 0.15 behind him, Sujin Pillay, followed by Tian Ilof. Then you got Ryan Ottens, Essie Esterhaus, Jan Kleinans, Bego Krobler, Mac van der Merwe, Mahath Musa up into 9th place. Good to see. Justin Lotus into the top 10 once again. So glad to see that a little bit more momentum. As saying that, he gets immediately kicked out by his teammate, Daniel Rowe, who says, no, listen, I need to be in the top 10. You're going to have to follow behind me. But now the question comes in. Would you want to be on the inside or would you want to be on the outside? From my personal experience, if your teammate's on the outside, you're going to hit the wall.
I was waiting for that. I was waiting for that one. I'm going to agree with you, Stephen. I think outside is better. Yes, it's exceeding track limits, but at least you got some room there on the left-hand side. Stephen will go on forever that I'm put him in a wall, even though I showed him via replay that wasn't the case. But, I've learned to take that one on the chin.
I can tell you which walls to hit. Turn 1 and turn 3. They don't move and very unforgiving. Learned that the incredibly hard way for GT3 racing.
Oh, and that you're referring...
Jean-Ray Bertha also coming in and saying, how's it? Good to see Mr. Bertha.
Are you referring to the one where you ended up in the fence?
Within the first 12 seconds of a race, yes. That was the fastest 12 seconds in my life.
In your defense, what happened is a car spun out in front of Steven. He braked, the rest of the field didn't. End of race.
Went in dry. The only way to describe that. But at the moment, qualifying over and done with. Sujin Pillay not opting to go out again. Tian Elof, Ryan Ottens, all the same. Daniel Demetrio Petro hoping to get a little bit more pace out of him. Doesn't seem to have the delta to do it. Mac van der Merwe, 0.1 up. Mahath Musa also 0.1 up. So, guys, some people are able to push a little bit harder than the others. And Mr. Boersma over here for the KSR team is on a hard push, but I think he might have just got a bit of an off track there. Mac van der Merwe, 0.2 up, and you can see Daniel trying to chase him down. Will Mac be able to keep this 0.2? Tian Elof tried his best to make a move up through the field a little bit earlier. Mac van der Merwe trying, can he get out of 8th place and across the line? He manages to move into 7th place for the race. So, not an easy track. You can lose just a fraction of momentum, and that will be pretty much that. And come the race, well, it's going to be all about slipstreaming for every single one of these drivers. Rosman trying his best. He has so far quickest time, 1 minute 44.1. So now trying to claw his way out of 15th place and go after Jean Leroux in 14th place. Very close to the wall, and, well, Opsa, he's going to bail out of it. Wasn't able to get it in time. So, while the drivers are getting ready to jump over to our 45-minute race, Yanneman stacked grid at the moment. Some ultra-competitive drivers, and one track that you get it wrong, you're going to land up in a world of hurt. No pressure to the drivers, but turn 1 is a bit of a magnet to go for.
I actually have a question for you. Ever since we've been...
doesn't usually end well.
Yeah, no. Ever since we've been commentating, I don't think I've ever seen Daniel D'Amatos Preto on pole.
No,
do you think there will? Do you think there will be some nerves? Yeah.
This is his first pole. I honestly. I don't think that he's got nerves. Having to chat to him a little bit after all the giggles, he seems very confident and very confident in what the little Honda can do. Very confident around the circuit. One of the circuits he has been practicing quite a bit on since the original DLC. Well, since the DLC came out, but I think he's got a little bit of hard work considering you see who's around him. Sujin Pillay is lurking around on the outside. Can get a little bit momentum and get past. Tian Elof, one person that we've seen go and take the fight to the front. Lying in third place, Ryan Ottens. As we know, it's Mr. Ottens. Really trying to Ottens the Ottens. In fourth place, Bego Krobler. Going to be cruising around behind. Essie Esterhaus, Mac van der Merwe, Kleinans, Mahath Musa with a bit of support as well jumping in, which is good to see. Brandon Kruger in the top 10. We've got so many incredible drivers, some incredible talent, and I don't know where we're going to put things. I don't know how it's all going to turn out.
Just another name that stands out a bit for me is Daniel Rowe in 12th position. Now, we've seen it on Thursday evenings as well. It does seem like Daniel is still very much getting used to that BMW, having made the switch of driving mid-engine cars now to front-engine cars. Steve, do you think it is a case of him still getting used to the car?
Well, I think so, but I also want to just bring up that our 8th place man over here, Jan Kleinans, well, Jan, I know you're not allowed texting and driving, buddy, but sending a comment saying good luck shows me that you're on your phone and listening, which is a little bit worrying because I recommend listening to the pit box versus the commentary. It might be easier, so no pressure. We just got the camera on you, buddy. Don't get it wrong.
But he's welcome to come and join us for a chat later on. You know, texting and driving. Maybe send a message during the pit stop should he hit a wall. Not that I'm wishing anything on him, but, you know, he's going to hit a wall when he's texting and driving, though.
No to everyone. We do not like having texting and driving. Same as drinking and driving. Don't do it. The water will land in your lap and will make life difficult. That's for certain. I just got to say, you know, Ilof's color scheme, one of the striking color schemes I really enjoy. And I'm going back to George G. Max because back before you, Yellowman, George G. Max used to be around and he always used to pick the best color scheme and talk about the color scheme. So, bit of a tribute to him. And Ilof's color scheme just shines. But what I also want to bring up is take a look at the reflection on the circuit. Lights on, reflection off the circuit, which means it's getting a little bit darker. 45 minutes in, it's 3 minutes past 7 in sim time, which means they're going to get closer to 8 o'clock or quarter to 8. It's going to get a little bit dark. It's going to become a little bit more challenging for all these drivers as they are going to make their way across the line.
Absolutely. I mean, we'll have to wait and see how quickly it actually gets dark. We've seen on other tracks in the past where it can stay like this for an extended period of time and then all of a sudden get pitch dark in the question of 10 or so minutes.
Well, Kleinans actually sent a message, so he's definitely listening and said no walls. So, yeah, a little bit interesting there, a little bit nervous for you, buddy. And, well, as our drivers make their way through, as we see a grid full of amazing talent, 27 cars. Remember, ladies and gentlemen, this is our pro split. We do have a Pro-Am, an Am, a Gold, and a Silver that are also racing tonight. So multiple servers open. with different talents, with different skill levels, whether you be beginner to all the way to pro. You get to race against the competitors that fit your class, and that's the fun part about being here at RaceFace, where you get to race against people that are around the same level as you.
Yeah, absolutely. And that's what makes the racing so close. You're always in a class where people have similar skills than you. Just having a quick look back there, Daniel Rowe is not hanging back. He wants to get this race going and start making up those positions. Or maybe he just fell behind a little bit, had to make up the places to get back into position.
Well, ladies and gentlemen, 1 corner to go before we go to green lights, 70 kilometers an hour. All eyes are on our front. Daniel DeMachos Petro, Sujin Pillay getting ready to take the charge for round number 3 of the RaceFace GT3 Sprint Series for 2023. Ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, get yourselves excited. And already we've got a drive-through penalty for Nicholas Manuel. Nicholas Manuel scoring a drive-through, which means he was out of position and has cost himself. Sujin tried going on the inside, couldn't make it stick. Reinhardt's trying to go around the outside, off into the dirt. Ilof now ducking up the inside. Bago Krobler under a huge amount of stress at the moment, managing to get ahead of Mac van der Merwe. A little bit of contact in the back, though. Oh, and that, I think, has landed up with a few cars getting hurt. Brandon Kruger getting caught out. Gideon Rayner getting caught out. Daniel de Villiers getting caught out. But Kleinans, oh, my heavens. Janneman, you said it. It's your fault. Commentators
What did I do?
This is Kleinans, who was trying to make his way through turn 2, and unfortunately,
small little tap from the Aston. Oh, and that was enough to send him in the wall.
Oh, absolutely heartbreaking, but hopefully he can get that car going. Doesn't look like too much damage done to the car. Definitely light damage is lurking around for them. And let's see if he'll be able to claw his way through. He's already started catching up to the back of the grid. Sujin Pillay under a huge amount of pressure as Ilof is right behind him, trailing, doing everything he can. Look to the inside. The Aston blowing out flames, trying to huff and puff and get in front of the Ferrari. And the Ferrari just doing justice at the moment, showing that the Formula 1 could drive around the circuit while everyone else had to be on a showpiece. The GT3 car doing exactly the same. Ryan Otten's cruising behind, trying to keep up with him in the Porsche. You can see going way over the curb. And so does SES House going and taking a bit of a run. But take a look. Ilof now into the slipstream, pulling himself along. Out close again to the wall. Oh, that was Musa actually collecting the wall. So Musa taking a big impact at the BMW and losing out. And take a look just ahead of him. SES House chasing after Daniel Rowe. Daniel was able to outbrake him into turn 1. Very, very risky move, but managed to pull it off.
Absolutely. Turn 1 is kind of a risky overtaking place for me, because now you're heading down onto that long back straight and the car can come back at you, as you see the Honda coming back in the BMW. But looks like there was a little bit of contact there, and that made Daniel Rowe. Oh, another contact there, and that's going to turn out to be a kind of a big accident.
That's unfortunately, Brandon Kruger had a bit of a rough time trying to figure out how he could go Mahath Musa as well. And let's see if we can go through this. But
see, the problem with turn 1 is, the car can come back to you, and it's very risky doing an overtake into this bus stop section. And what happened there, the Honda slightest of touch on the BMW, that put Daniel Rowe on the grass. And then, from there on, he was kind of a passenger. As we all know, the braking is not the best on the grass for these type of cars.
Super speed grasses, it's more commonly known.
Super slip, non-grip.
That's it. And, well, Nicholas Manuel with that drive-through penalty up into 9th place has got to try and figure out when is he going to do it. He's got Justin Lotus trying to chase him down at the moment. But a bit of pressure put onto Nicholas, because he's got to do that drive-through within 3 laps. There's no if but wins about it. You've got 3 laps to serve that penalty before you get disqualified. I think at this point he's just trying to put as much spacing as possible to get going. Jean Leroux in the, well, I can call it now the old 720S McLaren, as the new 720S Evo has been announced by McLaren for the GT3 season and going to be coming out. So good to see that McLaren hopefully will get an update of an Evo put into Assetto Corsa, and Jean Leroux will look to try and change it out. Dean Cabasa, Bernard Rayner. Bernard trying to go on the inside into the bus stop. Who's later on the brakes?
That's well done.
Oh, Bernard just hanging on to the brakes and hanging on to the steering at that point. Dean Cabasa actually backing out of it, and you can see there was a lot of loss of time. And, a little bit into
Oh, there was a car on the grass.
Yeah, I'm trying to take a look. That's Rayner. Rayner spun around. Where did the contact come in? Brandon Kruger and him duking it out side by side into bus stop. And looks like Kruger going and relinquishing the position. Does look like that Aston Martin's carrying a bit of damage. You can see the bonnet slightly lifted at this point. As we watch Hillian Rayner trying to keep it all together. Goes a little bit on the dirt. Brandon going out wide. De Villiers trying to take action. Oh!
There was actually another McLaren in front of him.
That was Jean Leroux, who was actually stopped dead in the circuit and landed up with the Hillian Rayner coming around and, well, nowhere to go other than right up the rear. And it's got some severe damage to that car. Hillian Rayner now just trying to limp it back at the moment, but failure, possibly?
I've got no idea. Unfortunately, we caught on that incident a little bit later. Otherwise, we could have jumped, back and see what happened exactly there and what caused him to stop in the middle of the track.
I think there's going to be discussions had there. Ryan Otten's going after Sujin Pillay. Chasko late on the break. Sujin just trying to defend out. Couldn't get it right. Bago Krobler, the ever the opportunist, tried going at his teammate and now has got Mac van der Merwe, who was able to close down the gap onto the back of him. You can see both Audis squirming around. Sujin Pillay trying to make that Ferrari as wide as possible. The Stallion needs to gallop away from the Audis behind him as Bago Krobler and Mac van der Merwe are so close. Bago bottoming out a little bit there. That tells me he's actually lowered the suspension quite a bit to try and get it to stick as much as possible. But over time, bottoming out doesn't do well to your tires, and that steering does lighten up quite a bit, especially under braking.
Yeah, I mean, absolutely, you know what they say, as low as possible as long as it doesn't bottom out or stall the aero on the car. Yeah, Steve, we all would love to know what setup these guys are running, but I know that's never going to happen. So, if it's going to be kind on the tires for Bago, that will, have to remain to be seen.
I think if you go and ask any of these drivers for a setup, they're going to give you a safe setup because it's just no sharing of secrets at this point.
They're going to bodge it so badly and then tell you, try this, it works for me.
Move the brake bias all the way to the front.
Ooh, Daniel Rowe collecting the wall there a little bit.
Trying to get a bit of momentum. Darren Miller, who's defending against Eric Kirstein, who is hard on the brakes, right up against that Merc, and unfortunately outbraking himself in the process. So Eric Kirstein moving out the way, I don't think willingly for Daniel Rowe at that point. I think just the 50-meter board was about 2 meters too early for him.
Yeah, I mean, it's very easy to make a mistake at turn one and then run wide. That was Mayberg that, well done, lost the rear end of the Merc and, got it under control again. Or was it Miller?
That is Miller for the Race for Hope and going and representing it. So really putting in a great bit of work there. Back up to our front, though. Our leader, Daniel Demetrius Petro, who started in first, has now got Elof a little bit closer, 0.4 of a second. Ryan Ottens up into third place, still putting a huge amount of pressure at this point. Behind him, Bago Krobler, Sujin Pillay, Mac van der Merwe still keeping close to one another. So the guys are really slugging out. Up on the inside, Elof trying to go and take the inside line, getting a little bit darker and a little bit cloudy. Ryan Ottens sends it up on the inside of Petro. Petro trying to come back at him. The Porsche just able to squeeze ahead. But Ryan Ottens with just taking a deep breath at that point. Let's see if we can actually go back jump in the helmet so you can see what's going on. But if you want to talk about licking it and sending it and a hope and a prayer at this point, he saw a gap and just put his entire nose through it. Mind, body, and soul in this commitment. Up on the inside, hooking it sideways. Petro tried coming back at him, but just couldn't. Got squeezed out last minute. What a move.
Daniel dropping back from first to third in the space of all of our 2 corners.
Oh, but he's not done yet. As they bottom their way through, it's getting a little bit darker. You can see the sparks starting to fly. The headlights starting to glisten off the circuit. It's 15 degrees track surface, which means it is cold out there for these cars to go and deal with. And, well, that's one thing you got to be so careful of, is the tires are not going to be the greatest thing in the world.
I mean, absolutely, and hopefully they did their calculations right, because on a race like this, you're going to deal with forever dropping track temperatures. So what might have been the correct pressures at the start of the race is not going to be the correct pressures at the end of the race. So you need to find kind of a midway point and deal with tires that are slightly too hard in terms of inflation to get a tire that's, you know, in its operating window later on in the race. Or you're going to deal the other way around, deal with a tire that's fine at the start, but it's going to go off during the course of the race.
There you go, Krobler once again with a very loose setup, sliding his way around as Sujin Pillay putting a huge amount of pressure onto the Hybrid Academy driver. And Sujin Pillay, all I can say, a brilliant photographer in Assetto Corsa Competizione, has a real eye for the finer details, now going and giving his sister driver a run for his money and not easing up on the pressure. Bago having to really keep an eye on the mirrors and see that this Ferrari is hunting him down and is going to be in the slipstream the whole way along. Daniel Demetrio Petro trying to feed Ryan Ottens onto the inside. Ryan managing to outbrake him and just making it stick. Bottoming out as they make their way through the bus stop. Well, the boot, sorry. They call it the boot. And you can
the small boot.
Oh, a small boot? That's the only way of a... Well, it's a size 3. I wouldn't call it a 7.
Apparently that's a small boot, and now they're going into the big boot.
Daniel Rowe moving up a position over Loic and Randebolt. And Loic just not able to put up the fight under braking. It seems like the Porsche's just not able to go a little bit later. Beautiful shot as the cars make their way around the corners, and sparks fly from every single one of these GT3 cars. Steering lightens up quite a bit. Tires take a hell of a beating. Yeah, these are little things you got to be so careful of. Oh, and it actually got contact. Eric Costain and Darren Miller. What on earth happened to these two? Side by side into the boot. Oh, no one wanted to give. And, well, it looks like Miller's car's...
Neither does the Bollards.
Yeah, Miller's car's looking a bit second-hand. Eric Costain was able to get away with it, but that Mercedes, unfortunately, trying to rejoin and... Oh, man. Yeah, I think that was more the case of just trying to get off the apex with a damaged car and just get going. But yeah, both cars looking a bit worn out, if I can put it that way.
Yeah, I mentioned earlier on, you know, that boot is a very, I would call it a dangerous place to try and, you know, attempt an overtake. You need to have absolute trust in the driver that you're racing, and the slightest of touches, we've seen it before, the slightest of touches with Daniel Rowe as well, what accident can cause. And unfortunately, that time we did have a bit of a bigger accident happening.
Now, this is one of the tricks of, if you're going to go for it, you got to hope the other driver backs out. And unfortunately, both drivers were looking at each other, looking at the whites of each other's eyes as they headed to the corner. And, well, you shouldn't be looking at the whites of each other's eyes. And take a look at William Wentworth and Ikube. And William just doing everything he could and came out second best there, as Ikube went and baited him a little bit, trying to make a move. So well done to Ikube, but William Wentworth really not hanging back at this moment. He's up into 16th place and wants to keep on the charge.
I actually wanted to, you spoke about William Wentworth, and before that I I wanted to send out a message to Robert, but it's still looking good at this stage. William Wentworth making up 11th places since the start of the race, so I think Robert might be happy at this stage.
Williams trying to show off to the family that he can still stick it out, considering the entire family, not only the two Wentworth brothers, but the kids getting involved into the racing and actually showing how it's done. So Williams got it all on the line here. They've got to really sink it in and show what he can do. Keeping up the pride. Show the youngsters how it's done.
Yeah, no pressure.
You see Dean Kabasa duking out. Loic trying to go on the inside. Couldn't make it stick. Daniel Rowe and Bernard Renner slugging out just ahead of him. And this is also, where do you look? Where do you look in your mirrors? Left, right, center. The person behind you has a little bit more of the advantage here. Not only to pull in the slipstream, but also keep you guessing, keep you on your toes, and try and figure out where you're going to go. Renner trying to go and hold that inside line into the bus stop. Daniel Rowe tried his best there, couldn't make it stick. Can he do it again? Dives up on the inside, goes for the cutback. Aston Martin, BMW side by side, but it looks like Daniel Rowe keeping his foot absolutely planted. Managed to get it. Allowed Dean Kabasa to get right onto the back of Renner. So now Dean Kabasa hoping to really put in an extra bit of effort, chasing him down. Looks the inside of the Aston Martin, couldn't do it, tries to do it again, but super close to one another. Loic, who's a little bit behind at the moment, just keeping an eye on the battle, waiting for the door to open up. Hunty Myberg, who's had a difficult race at Brands Hatch, now back for round number 3 here at Watkins Glen. You can just see in the background the orange BMW, keeping an eye on all the action just ahead of him.
Absolutely. What was a 2x2 car battle very quickly turned into a 4-car battle, and Kabasa not hanging back. He's taking the fight to Renner, but closely behind, followed by Rondable. This is going to get interesting very quickly. Kabasa trying to attack, but at the same time getting attacked. Rondable moving up to his outside, seriously putting him under pressure, and now he's going to look at making that pass at turn 1, Steve, or do you think he's just going to line him up for the bus stop?
No, I think it was a look at turn 1, but just running out of braking zone. Decides to come back, gets a little bit of momentum. Now it's turn 2, turn 3. It's through the S's. It's all about keeping into that slipstream. Pull yourself up the hill, and you got to try and line it up, heading into the bus stop. And this is where it's going to get tricky. As you can see, Dean Kabasa backed off on Renner and now has to focus on Loic, who is really pushing hard. Looks the inside, opts to go for caution in this regard, knowing that the Porsche can be a little bit more skittish through corners. Doesn't want to take too much of a difficult run, but Dean Kabasa definitely, well, I think at this point he's unplugged the brakes and focusing on just keeping on the throttle and use the gears to slow it down.
Absolutely, but Loic not taking any, necessary risks at this time. He's just biding his time behind him and putting him under serious amounts of pressure.
What on
that looked like Daniel Rowe.
That was Daniel Rowe, who just got alert from it, and steering at full lock, trying to go his way through, carry a bit of momentum. What happened to this little car? Under braking. I see one of the McLarens behind him. And onto the grass, and unfortunately, the BMW just taking a bit of a snap there. Bernard Renner saying thank you very much, Dean Kabasa, and Loic trying up on the inside. So, a little bit of a difficult situation, and it really shows why the circuit can be on the same level as, I would say, Bathurst. One mistake can end your race very, very quickly.
Well, there are certain sectors here, especially the middle part, sector 2, that is, I wouldn't say similar to Bathurst, but it's got the same characteristics of, you've got the guide rails, as we call it, on the sides. I mean, after this, it's just guide rails running through for most of the track. And Steve, we see there, put a slight wheel on the grass, it's going to bite you, and it's going to send you into those barriers.
Both cars looking a little bit skittish into the bus stop, and I mean, it's getting a bit darker out there, gentlemen. Those lights are becoming more and more prevalent on the circuit, and we're only 24 minutes past 7. So the sun has set. It's now starting to get darker. Those brake markers are starting to become a little bit more difficult. And if someone has removed the brake markers that are on the ground, you're going to have to look towards the sky to see where it is. And
look at the stars for guidance.
That's it. Try and figure out where you're going to go. But if we jump on board and just see Dean Cabasso who's fighting the car, you can see the headlights a little bit dazing behind him in the mirrors because it's rather distracting. These cars are extremely bright with the lights, and especially as it gets a little bit darker, as you're fighting your way through, you're trying to pinpoint little points on the circuit to keep going, and all you need is you're having essentially a star behind you.
Yeah, and the other problem they're sitting with at this stage, we kind of in that twilight zone, if you want to call it that. It's not entirely dark yet, so the headlights are not really effective at this stage. Yes, we see them glowing on the tar, but if you go in car, you can see it's relatively dark. And, sometimes this is a period that I don't like driving through because, as I mentioned, there's no real effect on the headlights yet. As we see Loic jumping up on the inside of Cabasso there, that looked like a relatively easy pass to me.
I think Cabasso at the point just decided to rather back out of it, seeing Loic's got some pace. Maybe try and use Loic to catch up to Renner. That is a possibility. Use your competition to
use the toe.
Well, that's it. Use your competition. So you take a look, Dean Cabasso getting immediately right onto the back of Loic, 0.5 of a second under braking. So that tells me he's trying to utilize the toe, trying to keep going. But let's take a look at where everyone's sitting. Tieran Eloff up in first place, having a great bit of time there. Starting to catch up to one of the back markers. And I think that is actually, that might be Kleinans. No, it isn't. It's not Kleinans. It's not Myath Musa, and it's not Miller. So one of the McLarens, that might be Gideon Rayner. Yes, it's Gideon Rayner in 19th position. About to have Eloff come by. Ryan Otten's in second place, who actually is holding the fastest lap at the moment, 1:43.7. So really impressive time. You can see trying to use the back marker for the toe. And Renner just saying, stop trying to use me as a toe, buddy. Like, get past me. Get going. I don't want to be part of this fight. Slowing up and getting off the throttle. But both Eloff and Ottens want to use every little advantage. No matter how minuscule it is, they really want to try and get one up on each other and get as close as they can to one another.
Yeah, I mean, Ryan trying everything he can to get up to the back of Eloff. 0.6 of a second, 0.7 of a second behind as they're heading to the bus stop chicane. So, Stephen, you were talking about front-engined, mid-engined. At this stage, out in front, we got a front-engined versus a mid-engined Porsche. And another mid-engined, a couple of mid-engined cars behind that. So, at this stage, it's a lonely Aston Martin out in front.
Well, I don't think it's all too lonely. Not lonely enough, I think, for Eloff at this point, as he's got Ryan Artens putting in a huge amount of pressure. I say don't count out the little Honda. Daniel Demetrios Petra has showed that he's got some pace and he's got some legs underneath him. All he needs to do is just try and get it to close up a bit more. See Marshall actually putting out what we call the meatball flag, so it tells me that there is one of the cars with a bit of damage that needs to come into the pits, and that's our technical flag, black with an orange. Orange.
There was a little bit of contact there.
Yeah, I just lost my trail of thought. So let's actually take a look at what happened as we see the cars come through. That is Kleinans, and I think that might have been Musa that is behind. It's actually one of the BMW time trial cars. And
losing the rear end and then collecting the BMW.
Yeah, Musa had nowhere to go other than wall there. Kleinans, who's just got it out of shape, unfortunately landing up, taking a big hit, and Musa just trying to limp that car back to the pits. Every so often catching on the brakes and the light fading underneath him. Something we're very familiar with. ACC really great.
What is it with the blinking headlights as soon as and he's really struggling to steer that car, disappearing out of picture. Oh man, it's that seems like it's an absolute mess to get back to the pits. But Stephen, coming back to the blinking headlights, what is the story with that?
I think they just make it wink once in a while. You got to think of Valentine's Day, buddy. You got to put a bit of a wink out there.
We once did an endurance race, me and Stephen, and we picked up damage on the front of the car. And as soon as we hit the brakes, all the headlights died.
And it decided to close its eyes. It's the only way of putting it. It was Herbie closing its eyes.
Closing its eyes for the accident that's about to follow.
And afterwards. And every time.
And afterwards.
Ryan Ottens is still putting some massive pressure on. Take a look at the lap time. So Elof, last lap time, let's take a look when he comes across the line before I make my comments. Otherwise, I'm going to land up with more fault. Last lap time, 144.48. Ryan Ottens, 144.2. Going quite a bit quicker and really giving Elof a run for his money, but just not able to get past the Porsche, not able to get around the Aston Martin before the corners, and seems to be battling a bit.
Yeah, but Ryan got a beautiful exit out of turn 1, and he's now tucking into that slipstream. But Stephen, I don't think he's close enough at this stage to try and even attempt to pass into the bus stop. So it does look like that Aston Martin's got some serious grunt out of the corners or onto the straights, possibly running a little bit lower downforce than what the Porsche's running.
He's as close to Elof as I was as close to a Valentine's date in school. A little bit too far out of reach, and we'll just
out of your league.
Yeah, we'll have to hold on the brakes for it. As they make their way around Reinhardt, it's still focusing on Elof. Elof really focusing on the charge. It's starting to get a little bit darker. Those back markers are going to come into play more and more as time goes on. But inside the cockpit, let's take a look. You can see the Porsche hunting him down, the clouds coming in, and you can see how it's starting to get a little bit trickier for the drivers to identify where they need to go, and sliding around the Aston Martin's traction control, just biting wherever it can at this point to try and hang on. The track temperature still 15 degrees, which is extremely cool. 18 minutes and 54 seconds to go. I mean, checkered flag's not coming out fast enough for Elof at this point. Ryan Otten's putting in a huge amount of pressure. Daniel Demetrio Petro trying to make up a bit of ground, but someone that is closing up on him is Sujin Pillay and Bego Krobler, who now suddenly see that Honda is a little bit closer than planned.
Yeah, Daniel lost a little bit of time. He's dropped back about 2 seconds in the last couple of laps, and that has allowed Surgeon and Bego to close up. And in Bego, only a second behind Surgeon Pillay. So we might see some action there in the near future. Currently looking at Myberg and Kabasa. Kabasa has dropped back.
That's actually in Kube.
Oh,
so Kabasa's ahead.
Yeah, sorry. The timing screen's catching up. Kube behind. I'm slow.
No, you just don't like Mercedes color schemes.
I still want to ask the question. The Petronas colors on the BMW, but I'm letting that one slide. But what I wanted to say before I got rudely interrupted, Kabasa has fallen back back from Loic a little bit. So Loic was able to open up that gap, and Kabasa wasn't able to stay with him.
And Nicholas Manuel duking out with William Wordsworth. Remember, Nicholas Manuel had a drive-through penalty, was involved in a little bit of an incident earlier in the race, narrowly avoiding an incident, I would have to say. And unfortunately, having William Wentworth all over the back of him, trying to force him into a mistake. And our cameras are also starting to duke it out, trying to figure out what's going on. I think Tim, the cameraman out there, has now pulled out his phone and trying to identify numbers on the side as he looks around. So
got his torch out.
Yeah, Tim, the cameraman's using his phone at this point. I don't think it's dark enough for the torch. I think he has to try and figure out where the buttons are with the.
Does he have night vision cameras?
No, but I reckon he's going to have to start the generator soon.
Yeah, I mean, it's getting to an interesting time of the race now. Just under 17 minutes left. Ilof's still out in front. Ryan Otten's chasing him. Surgeon Pillay and Bego Hrobla chasing, Daniel. But Bego now only, 0.5 of a second behind. So he is trying to catch Musa. Pillay. I'm struggling with surnames the whole evening.
Well, take a look. Let's go back about 10 seconds and go back a little bit further, it seems. But actually see from in-car view, they go really pushing the limits of this little Audi and what it can do. As he makes his way through, you can see the steering starting to get more and more of an angle, just trying to keep it together, and it gets all types of hair raising as tries to sort himself out as the car bottoms out. We talked about it getting a bit lighter on the steering and how it can affect you. You just start having it get a little bit more hairy. I think he's upped the traction control a little bit slightly just to try and get the Audi back into check underneath him. And after changing the color of his shorts, trying to catch up to Sujin Pillay and bottoming out extremely badly in the Audi. It's just ultimately you've got to push as hard as you can, but where's the limit?
Well, I suppose you'll find out where the limit is once you hit the wall. We currently have a look at Nicholas Manuel. He's chasing after Wentworth. Currently 1.5 or so seconds behind, trying to make his way up the field.
Well, I just want to point out Nicholas Manuel with a drive-through penalty. Got all the way into 9th, did his drive-through, dropped down to 27th, has now made his way back to 16th, where he started. I mean, that's actually not bad, and really putting in a huge amount of, stepping up a game to get there. So hats off to Nicholas Manuel. Despite having a drive-through penalty served to him, he still really stuck it in.
I mean, absolutely. And, that's another thing Watkins Glen, for me, has in common with the likes of Bathurst. And normally it's he who has the least amount of incidents tends to do well. Now, Manuel has had his fair share of incidents tonight, but I think there's a couple of guys, unfortunately, that has had bigger incidents than him.
Well, I think while we have got Mr. Kleinans actually in the chat, Mr. Kleinans, Janneman would like to say sorry. Janneman? Say sorry.
I sincerely apologize for jinxing you before the race.
You literally jinxed him so hard, he made 4 corners.
It wasn't my intention at all.
No, you jinxed a person so hard, Janneman. You had the power. It's non-negotiable here.
I will make
set a sniper out on the circuit to take it out on him.
I will make up for it tomorrow night as I'm rooting for Jan for the win. How does that sound?
You got to send him an apology. Send him a Valentine's card.
Valentine's Day is open now. It's time for April Fools.
Oh, that's one thing to look at it. Well, Nicholas Manuel, William Wentworth duking it out. And I just want to point out, Nicholas Manuel and William Wentworth, 2 former ZAR drivers, was actually part of the Kai racing team originally, and then changed as Kai fell away. That was originally run by Tebo Maloto. It became the ZAR racing team, and that was under Devin Delport. Both William Wentworth and Nicholas Manuel raced together, duked it out, practiced with one another, know each other so well, and the planning behind it. Now the 2 coming to blows once again on the circuit under 2 different teams. And, how to make a family reunion a little bit more, I could say interesting.
And absolutely, you've mentioned that they've raced, practiced everything before, and, from my perspective towards you, Stephen, it's extremely difficult to pass your teammate because they know exactly what you're going to do, when you're going to do it, but you also know exactly what they are going to do and when they are going to do it, like parking it in the middle of the track.
William Wentworth just making himself an absolute blockade to try and hold Nicholas Manuel at bay. Nicholas trying to look on the inside, but being a little bit more tentative, not going for a aggressive pass. William Wentworth trying to push the limits a little bit. And just take a look at the two and see William Wentworth has got a little bit more of a loose rear, which tells me he's running slightly less aero. That's giving him the straight line, which he needs around. Where Nicholas Manuel's got a bit more aero for cornering, so he can close up through the corners quite a bit, especially under braking, and really give William a run for his money. So it's once again a setup. Here's the two of the same cars, two different ways are trying to get one up on one another.
William running wide, then that might hurt him a bit down the section, the flat out section.
Well, there we go, side by side, making their way through turn 3, turn 4, and just keeping it absolutely planted. Somebody take a screenshot, take a small video, put it on TikTok. You want to see two BMs slug it out onto the brakes. William Wentworth having to concede as Nicholas Manuel really did everything he can. But wall to wall, it was pretty much like the referee told them to go both into their corners and get ready to fight at that point.
Yeah, I mean, absolutely. And, at the end of the day, I won't say it was an easy pass, but now Manuel needs to stay in front. And you've hinted to the fact, Stephen, that he might have a little bit more aero on that car. So if that is correct, that will allow Wentworth to come back at him down that long, I call it a straight because it's just flat out through there.
You just keep your foot absolutely buried. But, go back up to the front. Ryan Arton's 1.3, hovering between 1.1 second to 1.3 seconds behind Tian Elof in the Aston Martin. Daniel Demetrio Petro 7.9 seconds away from second place. Sujin Pillay trying to chase him down. Bago Krobler also doing what he can. They managed to make their way around the McLaren and now trying to claw his way through. Mac van der Merwe in 6th place. Essie Esterhaus in 7th. 8th place is Justin Lotus. Bernard Rayner in 9th place as he makes his way around the circuit in the Aston Martin. Loic Randable in 10th place. He's getting chased down by Daniel De Villiers. Dean Kabasa in 12th. Tini Nkube, his teammate, in 13th. Hunty Myberg in 14th. Nicholas Manuel has got William Wentworth all over the back of him at this point as the two of them look to suck it out. We're going to hang on these cameras and just follow it through. William Wentworth trying to get into the toe, just hasn't got enough space to look up on the inside. But Nicholas Manuel living for another day. Brandon Kruger down in 17th place. Gideon Rayner in 18th. 19th, Tienes Bertha. Busma in 20th. 21st, Eric Costain. Darren Miller. 23rd, Mahayath Musa. Despite the incident which absolutely wrecked the car, he got it back out onto the circuit after pitting. And Jean Relou in 24th. Couple of retirements, unfortunately, due to a few incidents and mechanical failures from the grid that we started with close to 20. Well, we had 27 cars. And, well, rather impressive running so far throughout the field for our RaceFace GT3 Sprint Series Pro tier at the moment.
Absolutely. Steve, I just want to mention something quickly. Mr. Kleinon's got back to us and he says, just jinx the other people out of my way tomorrow and I'll be happy. Well, Jan, you'll have to send me a private list, please, as I don't think I can do it on air, but I'll do my best there for you.
I can already tell you who's not going to be in the grid because he's not fast enough. Starts with a J and ends with an S. And I'm going to be server muted.
I'm just trying to think. My name starts with a J and ends with and my surname ends with an S. You're talking about me?
No, not at all. Daniel Demetrio Petro falling down the field. We actually keep an eye on it. What on earth happened to Daniel? He disappeared off the face of the earth.
Oh, do you think he suffered a disconnect?
I've got a funny feeling. We saw a whole lot of empty track and
yeah.
well, there we go. The whole field moving up. We've got 23 cars in the service, so
oh, that's a shame.
Yeah. Going all the way from first and dropping out. There's Miller just gapping out of the way for Tian Elof. But that has promoted Sujin Pillay, getting chased down by Bago Krobler, up into third place. If you want to talk about telling your teammate to take a walk off a short cliff, this is the time to do it.
Yeah, this now very much turns out to be a battle for third place now that the Matos Pretor is out of the way. But, you know, Bago has not been really, or hasn't been able to make much of an impact on Pillay. Pillay has been comfortably running ahead of him, you know, between 0.5 to 1 second ahead of him, but Bago's not really able to put pressure on him to get past.
Bago last lap time was 144.840, where Sujin Pillay did a 144.9. So it's, I mean, you're talking split seconds to try and do something, but both evenly paced. Bago's slightly quicker, but just not having enough tar ahead of him to get a little bit more of a run up at Sujin Pillay, and the corners just not being far enough away to utilize the slipstream at this point.
Yeah, and he's starting to run out of time because there's only roughly, let's call it 3 or so laps left. So if he wants to make a pass, he will have to start seriously thinking about it.
Busma up on the inside, manages to make it stick. Bertha trying to come back at him. Tiana's getting a little bit squirrely coming out of the corner, so McLaren's just bottoming out, and Busma more than happy to say, thank you very much, I'm going to take this and, well, pack my box bongos and leave. Get away from Bertha as quick as possible.
Check out.
Oh, that's it, eh? I'll take the check, please.
No tip required.
It's just try and get away, but interesting stuff right through the field. And you know, once again, Watkins Glen, one of the circuits that can give you the highs and lows and show that racing can be a cruel mistress every time they get to that wall. I just look at, well, I can tell you I'm the slowest person through the corner because you just, anytime that the wall can fold your mirror inside for you, and yeah, it just makes you feel very uncomfortable. But that separates the pro drivers to the AM drivers, if I can put it that way, is you'll see the AM drivers taking a more cautious approach, not wanting to get too close to the wall, you know, just giving themselves a little bit of breathing room, where the pro drivers, the pro tier, they're willing to take that risk. They're willing to push that little bit harder, and well, it's make it or break it to get the actual win, to claw their way to the position.
Not meant in I mean this in the best possible way, but Steve, you'll know what I'm talking about. You know, it's like a bunch of hooligans.
That's it. It's, they have made peace with death.
Yeah. If it happens, it happens.
They have made peace with such, and so it will. If so it happens, so it will be.
Yeah, I mean, you know, it just shows you how flat out these guys are going. And I mean, all of them are going, you can say all 23 drivers remaining, they are going flat out as quick as possible. And there's, Steve, you can almost say there's not one driver that started on this grid tonight that was not going out for the win.
Not at all. I think everyone has really stuck it out. I mean, let's take a look at how dark it's actually become as we jump on board of Loic. You can see even the grandstands are non-existent at this point. Lights ablaze, and windscreen wiper getting bumped on as well. So Loic just saying hi to the cameras. Good to see.
Sending out a wave.
Just sending out a wave, and doing it. Can't really show the hazards, so turn the windscreen wiper on just to let us know. I've got to say, I quite like that. That's one of the tip of the hat sort of thing, and he does it to other drivers as well, just to say, well done. Good move there. Let's keep going. With under 2 minutes left, every driver's really put in a huge amount of effort. And, well, whether you've managed to start the race or even get this far in, everyone has had to overcome a challenge. As we see in the comments that Robert Wentworth busy going and cheering on the guys. We've actually had Robert McCall go and say, unfortunately, load shedding is not in their favor for the evenings, which is rather unfortunate. I mean, Morgan's been on an absolute charge, and we'll have to see how it all turns out. But all the drivers having to try and figure out what to do to hang in, to survive the championship at this point. But first place, Tian Elof has just walked away from Ryan Ottens, about 3 seconds away. The Aston Martin really showing what it can do, keeping his foot absolutely buried at this point. The tires really just asking for forgiveness and just please hanging on for dear life as he slides that Aston through. It's been a great race all around, from the top of the field to the bottom.
Yeah, absolutely. And you mentioned that livery of Elof earlier on, and now that it's dark, it looks even more superb.
So a little bit of a tribute to George G. Max, one of the original RaceFace commentators. So going and talking about color schemes.
But the fight out in front might have opened up a bit with a 3-second gap, but Bago, again, 0.5 of a second behind. 10 seconds left of the race. So if he wants to make a move, he needs to make that move seriously quickly.
How well will the team boss react if you just hit the brakes a little bit later and just sneak it up the inside?
What do they call it? Multi-21.
Yeah, multi-21. I think that's what's happening. The Hybrid Academy has just been issued the multi-21, and Sujin Pillay is hanging on for dear life with Bago trying to chase him down. But I think that Ferrari's a little bit more planted, looking through the corners, not moving a lot under braking, which tells me it's not as stiff. And what on earth has happened?
That's the end of the race.
Comes across a line, but it did look like that Sujin Pillay did slow down quite a bit more than planned, and that might have changed the race. So Sujin, you got to be rather careful doing that, bud. But Dylan Elof into first place, Ryan Ottens in second, Sujin Pillay in third, Bago Krobler in fourth, Mac van der Merwe in fifth, sliding it into the tires and just saying how's it to the crowd. SES House busy chilling in the pits. Justin Lotus coming across the line to take 7th place. Bernard Rayner in 8th place. 9th place, diving it to the line, goes Loic Rendabel ahead of Daniel de Villiers, straight lining it through. And, well, I don't know if they were just trying to get a nice photo to one another, but Loic Rendabel just went and said, well, I'll take that one, thank you very much. Daniel de Villiers, I think, is abusing the brake pedal at this moment. Dean Kabasa in 11th, Tini Kuba in 12th, Hansi Myberg in 13th place, Nicholas Manuel finishing up in 14th, William Wentworth in 15th place, Brandon Kruger chasing his way around. He's going to be finishing in 16th place, Gideon Rayner in 17th, Tiernas Bertha in 18th, 19th, Mr. Boersma himself, Eric Kirstein in 20th, 21st, Darren Miller, Mahath Musa, and Grant Sebastian. Unfortunately, a couple of retirements, as we know. But, gentlemen, impressive night for the RaceFace GT3 Sprint Series.
Yeah, I mean, all these guys went flat out. Unfortunately, we had a couple of incidents, but Steve, that's Watkins Glen. I mentioned earlier on, I compare a lot certain sectors to Bathurst. We talk about those guide rails always on Bathurst guiding you in the right direction. It's very much the same for Watkins Glen. And the margin of error is so small. We saw a couple of times, just putting a wheel on that grass can send you out into the wall. Elof tonight had an absolute monster of a race. At the end, Ryan was not able to catch him. And then Sujin Pillay, I mean, I think that was one of Sujin's best results in a long time. Well, ever since we've been commentating. What do you say?
I've got to take my hats off to the Ferrari driver, having a good run, and he's going to be quite happy with that. But tomorrow evening, we're going to have the medal state, the Grid Championship. Also, same time, ready to have a bit of fun. So tune in for that one. We're going to be both out on Twitch under Metal State, so make sure you subscribe there. And also here on RaceFace, so make sure you subscribe and hit the bell notification icon. Next week, though, we're going to be making a trip to Indianapolis, not to do the Indy 500, and, well, driving cars that have fenders on them instead of open single-seaters. Janneman, anything in closing for, well, the GT3 Sprint Series round number 3 done and dusted with some incredible action?
Well, it would be interesting to see tomorrow night if the likes of Ryan Ottens and Pillay, Bago, and so forth can take this momentum and build on that for tomorrow evening. Obviously tomorrow evening, a lot different race. 2 pit stops to contend with, different strategies to tonight, but I think it's going to be an interesting one tomorrow evening.
Well, one thing I would like to find out and be a fly on the wall is definitely going to be with De Villiers and Loic Randebel trying to get a photo finish, and Loic just getting a 1 kilometer faster than his teammate across the line, swiping some very, very much needed points at that point. And, well, honestly, ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, thank you very much. Make sure you hit the subscribe button along with the bell notification to be alerted for all the races that go on here at RaceFace, not only for our GT3 account, but hopefully in the future we'll have our open wheels and even our dirt. If you are interested in joining RaceFace, make sure you look up RaceFace.pro at www.raceface.pro out on Google or whatever you use to go and join up with all the action. Come racing with us. From myself, Stephen Koenig, and also Janneman Price. Thank you for joining us this evening, and we'll see you tomorrow for the Grid Championship.
Good night, everyone.
Good night.